Tons of them. Awesome.
ready when you are. Yeah, we're ready.
Everybody's phones on vibrate?
Yep.
Especially you?
Yep.
All right, I'll get us kicked off here.
Yeah. If you ever want. Good afternoon. I now call to order the fourth general session of the 57th General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association. So they can't hear me. I can hear me. Is that better? All right, so how's this? All right, perfect. So let me try that again. I now call to order the fourth general session of the 57th General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Just a procedural note, when we get to our discussions and voting, I'd ask that those of you who are delegates and have yellow cards, that you move into the middle sections if you could. Those far left and far right sections are really challenging for us to see from here, and we want to make sure that we catch your vote. And I now, Kathy.
Good afternoon. E.B. White wrote, "If the world were merely seductive, that would be easy. If it were merely challenging, that would be no problem. But I arise in the morning, torn between the desire to improve or save the world and a desire to enjoy or savor the world. This makes it hard to plan the day." I think White poses a false dichotomy. All are called to simultaneously save and savor the world. Indeed, we cannot achieve the beloved community without saving the world from what is broken and harmful and savoring what is beautiful and worthy. As we engage in the work of this General Assembly, may we be mindful of the call to both save and savor. Blessed be.
Founded in 1963 through consolidation of Unitarian and Universalist women's organizations, the UU Women's Federation, or UUWF, has evolved into an education, advocacy, and funding organization with a vital mission: to advance justice for women and girls and to promote their spiritual growth. UUWF is one of two associate member organizations of the UUA, along with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. Please welcome UUWF President Claire Sexton.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am so happy to be here and so honored to be a part of the UU Women's Federation. It's been quite a year, from the energy of the Women's March to the explosion of the Me Too movement to the smaller, quieter, daily activities. Millions of people have spoken out and called out gender injustice lately. We seek to push our society further and faster toward the end of the imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist heteropatriarchy. As Unitarian Universalists, we are called to break the cycles of oppression within and beyond our denomination. Our small and active board is comprised of passionate volunteers committed to gender justice and intersectionality. As announced at last year's GA, we are proceeding for UU Women and Religion to become a key program of the UUWF, combining forces in our mutual quest toward diverse religious feminisms and gender equity. The New Prophetic Sisterhood, a project of the UUWF, continues its work to amplify the voices and ministries of women-identified religious professionals and serve as a platform for sharing their sermons and other public acts of ministry. This year, we expanded the scope of this project to include not only clergy, but all religious professionals, and now engage over 250 colleagues. One of the initiatives of the New Prophetic Sisterhood is the annual Justice for Women and Girls Sermon Award. This year's submissions most frequently addressing Me Too, both inside and outside UU. The award recipient for 2018 was Claire Fortune Ladd, the Director of Religious Education in Haverhill, Massachusetts. She delivered her sermon, Me Too, Now What?, during the last program slot. Our Margaret Fuller funding projects this year include major funding to document UU women's herstory in the Heresies Special Collection at Meadville Lombard, one that was close to Denny Davidoff's heart. She asked UUWF to contribute to the preparation of the Heresies Archive to be converted to searchable online documents to be more accessible to everyone. Additionally, we are providing funding for the authors of an upcoming Skinner House book project, Speaking Our Stories and Telling Our Truths, Black Women Clergy in Unitarian Universalism, to share their stories in person in promotion of this important and timely anthology. An Equity and Justice grant this year provided funds for a congregation in Harrisburg to offer childcare during the 40-day season of civil actions by the Poor People's Campaign of Pennsylvania at the state capitol as part of the larger campaign, the National Call for Moral Revival. The Marjorie Bowens Wheatley Scholarship Program provides direct financial support to aspirants or candidates to the Unitarian Universalist Ministry or candidates in the UUA's religious education or music leadership programs who identify as women of color, Latina, or Hispanic. This past year's recipients were Diane Daniels of Norwich, Connecticut, and Sanaa Saeed of Arlington, Massachusetts. We are so pleased to support Diane and Sanaa on their paths to ministry and encourage others to apply. The next application for the scholarship is October 1st. Our interfaith, intersectional equity and justice work in 2018, just from January to May, included support of equal pay, with an ongoing commitment to recognizing the even greater disparity for women of color and women with disabilities, advocacy for a federal paid family leave policy, and continued fierce opposition to efforts to overturn reproductive rights and choices. Many thanks to the UUWF Minister, Reverend Marty Keller, for her expertise and her energy for this important ongoing advocacy. She's fabulous. These are just examples of our work over the past year, and we regularly post actions and information to our members and the public through social media. The UUWF seeks to amplify the voices of women in the Unitarian Universalist movement and the voices of UU women in our country. We are committed to engaging UUs in the work for gender justice in an intersectional way. For more information here at GA, come talk with us at booth 322 in the exhibit hall. Just look for the red tent. And for updates throughout the year, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and visit our website, uuwf.org. We invite you to join us in our quest for gender justice. Thank you.
"5 years ago, you created the first ever presidential search committee. The committee was charged to present at least 2 names for election to the office of UUA President. Their final report is online, and Matthew Johnson and Jackie Williams, joined by other committee members, will give us their highlights.
What did we do over 5 years?
We created a process,
We researched,
listened a lot.
wrote a job description,
There wasn't one.
encouraged,
Took suggestions,
recruited widely,
received 8 applications,
all white female ministers,
a group of powerful leaders,
reviewed,
checked references,
interviewed,
discerned.
and nominated 2.
We thought we were done.
Not exactly.
We improvised.
Thankfully, there was another.
Then we stepped back and watched.
After the election,
We researched.
we interviewed
We discerned.
and reported.
Our committee was created because we, the UUA, wanted a different way of doing this.
And we did a lot different.
But here's the truth.
The Presidential Search Committee was instituted as an attempt to change the entire system of electing a UUA president by changing only one small part of that system.
Our final report contains 14 recommendations.
You should read them all.
Among other things, we called for
A much shorter election process, including congregational-based voting in the fall before the president takes office.
a closer relationship with the board,
Clearer authority about what happens if someone drops out.
no more running by petitions,
3 candidates,
an opportunity for a team of people to run and serve together,
and a study of the whole area by the board and the staff.
including how we might have a fully publicly funded campaign and clarity about how and if a UUA staff person can actually run, among other questions.
These and other recommendations are designed to provoke and encourage us to go further than we were allowed to go, to serve the association, our congregations, and potential candidates in ways that are more just, humane, and faithful.
We are very proud of our work.
This was an extraordinary group of people to work with.
We look forward to how the next process unfolds.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about rules and process. Because really, who isn't a church geek or nerd here? I am. I want you to know that before debate begins, time will be provided for you to informally discuss the agenda item that has been presented. We want you to discuss it with others sitting around you, that this informal discussion time will not count towards the 30-minute time limit we have for each item. There will be a timer on the screens to let you know when it'll count the time. Or it'll count down the time. It'll go in one direction or the other. And it'll be labeled speaker. That means you're speaking or communicating. Amendments. You must, for both amendments and all of the discussion and debate, you must be a delegate to speak at one of the microphones, whether that's microphone amendment 1, so we've got amendment mics over here, microphone 1, procedural mic right in front of me, and microphone number 2. So you must be a delegate to speak at one of those microphones. Amendments must have been submitted for consideration at the appropriate mini-assembly in order to be offered in this general session. There has to be 15 minutes of discussion before amendments to the main motion can be considered. And let's talk about time limits. No one can speak for more than 2 minutes and not more than once on an issue unless no one else wants to speak or unless the person standing at the podium offers more time. As I said, there's a 30-minute total time limit per item. After 15 minutes of debate, motions to table or refer are in order if that much time is needed. And motions must come to the procedural mic here in front of me. A motion to call the previous question is in order once 7 minutes has expired and there are no more people at either the 1 or 2 microphones. Those specifically labeled 1 or 2, not just random 1 or 2 microphones. Once 5 minutes has expired and no one is at either of those microphones, the motion to call the previous question is in order. And time taken at the procedural microphone will not count against discussion time. It will count against just lifetime. Just being honest. And a final note, a couple of final notes. Delegates, as I said, you must be a delegate, so that blue ribbon on your badge must be a delegate to speak at one of those microphones. And delegates can ask to suspend the rules by going to this procedural microphone. One last note. There are delegates joining us online who will be participating in this debate by submitting typed statements and voting via a secure polling app. Submitted statements will be read by our volunteer teller team, who will be the voice, if you will, of our off-site delegates, and the statements they read do not necessarily reflect their own personal views, but the views of those that they are bringing into the room. And we have a person at the procedural mic.
Thank you. Carl Ponanen from the Unitarian Universalist Church of Greater Lansing in Lansing, Michigan. I thank the moderator for clarifying how these rules of procedure work. One thing I'm confused on, I'm looking at page 70 of my program book where these rules of procedures are set out. I'm looking at Rule 6, paragraph C. I'm not sure if this says exactly what you said before. What it says here is a motion to call the previous question on the main motion shall not be in order if there are potential speakers at both pro and con microphones, whether on-site or off-site, and 7 minutes for discussion has not expired. So if both of those criteria happen, then the motion the motion for previous question is not in order. But if only one of those things is taking place, then the motion for previous question, I understand since the word and is used here instead of or, that would mean that a motion for previous question would be in order.
So I'm a visual learner. Give me 1 sec to grab my book so that I can be looking at what you're talking about, if you would. Thanks for your patience. So for clarity, both of those things have to happen. No one at either microphone and 7 minutes have passed.
Okay, so I'm sorry if I understand. If there is anyone left at either microphone, then a motion for the previous question is never in order?
It's both.
Okay, so the motion for previous question is not in order if both people at both microphones and there hasn't been 7 minutes.
Correct.
Okay, otherwise it would be in order.
Yes.
Okay.
Hang on. All right. So I think I can break it down into easier to understand language, at least for me. I don't know about for you. If, let's say, for example, we make it to 8 minutes. So we've gone past the 7 minutes, and there are no other folks waiting to be at either of the microphones or our on-site, off-site queue, then you can move the motion.
Okay, but if we get to 28 minutes and there are still people at both microphones,
We'll have gone past the 7 minutes.
then then the motion for previous question is in order.
Yeah, as long as we've gone to at least 15 minutes, but
Well, I don't know why you're bringing 15 minutes into the previous question, because it's not in, that's 15 minutes doesn't come into this.
go ahead.
So we've got multiple times going on,
Yes.
which i.e. is always our challenge. So there's a 7-minute and a 15-minute, right? So the 7 is if people are both pro and con, right? And then at 15 minutes, it is time that someone can call.
Okay, now you're introducing another new rule that
No,
isn't
I'm
in
not.
these.
It's literally the next one. It's
Oh,
just they're
maybe it
different
is.
bullets. It's different letters.
No, it is not in that section of these rules of procedure.
Okay, so here we go. I can read it to you. Are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
All righty. 30 minutes are allowed for discussion and all total. All righty? Motions to refer or table will only be in order after 15 minutes,
Correct.
right? So I'm just trying to give all the times. Then there's the piece around 7 minutes. So that's why I was saying there's a 30-minute for everything, a 15-minute for one thing,
For
and a
motions to
7-minute.
refer or table. Okay, what it says here, what you have just read to
Right.
me, 30
Yes.
minutes for everything,
Right?
15 minutes for a motion to refer or a motion to table.
Yes.
And 7 minutes for the motion to previous question.
Right.
I am only asking about the motion for previous question. I'm
But
not
other people might get confused too, so I'm
Okay,
helping
well,
everybody.
if you want to help everybody, that's fine. But I'm still confused about the motion for previous question, which was my original question.
So say it one more time so I can completely get it,
Okay.
so we can
The
understand.
way you
exactly
have written it here,
Right.
okay, if we go 5 or 6 minutes.
Yep.
And nobody's at the mic,
That's right.
we can make a motion for previous question.
Yes.
If we go 8 minutes, we can also make a motion for previous question,
Yeah.
even if there's people at the mic,
At one mic.
at one mic.
Yes. Because what it says,
Okay.
if 7 minutes has not expired, so yes.
Okay. Right, so the only reason it would not be in order if it's less than 7 minutes and there's somebody at a mic.
Both
That-
mics.
Yeah, that would be the only reason why it's not in order.
Right.
Okay.
We did a thing. We clarified the rules. It's your turn.
So I got to flip pages. In accordance with Section 4.12, 3 of the bylaws, at least 25% of certified congregations must participate in the ballot vote to place proposed study action issues on the ballot. The chair of the Commission on Social Witness, Susan Geckler, will introduce the issues that met the threshold. Then the proposer of each CSAI will have 2 minutes to explain the proposed issue and invite your vote. Up to 4 others may each speak for up to 2 minutes in favor of each issue. Following the presentations, delegates will vote to select one for 4 years of study and action, so please have your delegate cards ready. Susan?
So I just want to clarify, that, and Elandria can back, if I say something wrong. You've just gone over all the rules and procedures for debate, but what we're getting ready for is not a debate. So there's no pro or con or concern mic. There's just a 1 and a 2. For congregational study action issues, there are no amendments. We only hear from people who are for each of those, so we're not having a debate about pro or con. So, and then there's a vote between the two of them, so it's not like yes or no to this one, it's one or two. So hopefully that's clear. So based on the results of the congregational poll, the Commission on Social Witness submits the following issues from which delegates may select one for multiple years of study and action as a new Congregational Study Action Issue, or CSAI. The text of each proposal is in the agenda on pages 73 to 75. The first one, CSAI number 1, is entitled Undoing Intersectional White Supremacy. And the second, CSAI number 2, is entitled Dismantling Intersectional Oppression.
Can the delegates that are speaking to the proposed CSAIs please come forward? Okay, so we're going to start with number 1, then we'll go to number 2 in order. I recognize a delegate at the number 1 mic.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Leslie Runnels, and I'm a member of First Unitarian Universalist Church of New Orleans. Our congregation has been meeting for 2.5 years every Sunday to have uncomfortable conversations on racism. It has been hard and uncomfortable work, but it is important work that is vital to our faith. While doing this work, we have had glimpses into what liberation could feel and look like, and it feels good. And this is what gets us excited, knowing that this liberation could be available for all of us. Our faith calls us to deepen and extend our work. This CSAI answers the calls of the white supremacy teach-ins, the results of the Commission on Institutional Change, the leadership of Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, the safety team, the right relationship team, who we've heard from in this assembly, the ongoing organizing work of Black Lives, of Unitarian Universalism, and the many voices of color who have waited too long for us to take this work as a faith collective. We need this focus on white supremacy and its intersections to analyze the multiple ways white supremacy damages our communities and limits our potential. We need to focus on how we can work toward our collective liberation together. We must equip Unitarian Universalists to work inside and outside of our congregations. Through reflection and action, these courageous conversations will foster our abilities to understand and challenge white privilege, to decenter whiteness, to undo internalized and systemic white supremacy, and to dismantle racism and its intersecting oppressions. And this CSAI will make it happen.
Thank you. I now recognize a delegate at the number 2 mic.
Yes. Thank you. My name is Carla Golden, and I'm from the UU congregation of the Low Country in Bluffton, South Carolina. This CSAI is a call to expand our determined focus on solving the problem of white supremacy to include solving the problem of human exceptionalism. Historically, being fully human has meant being fully white, male, wealthy, able-bodied, and heterosexual. Anyone of any other color, gender, class, ability, or sexuality was deemed inferior, less than human, subhuman, 3/5 human, savage, or animal. This unscientific human versus animal scale of privilege and oppression is rooted in America's 400-year-old Eurocentric patriarchal system of domination. Maligning people with animals is one way oppressors justify actions of power and exploitation. White supremacy intersects with human exceptionalism, and both share a core oppression of domination. For example, our enormous industrial capitalistic food system results in food disparity, negative health outcomes, environmental injustices, domestic and substance abuse, and economic slavery at rates disproportionately higher for people of color and the poor, because commodifying and consuming animals flow from a domination mindset. As long as we maintain a demand for exploited animals, we will uphold intersecting systems of domination. This CSAI is a call to go wider and deeper with science and compassion into the interdependent web of all existence, to seek holistic intersectional justice for every being. We need not accept a forced choice between protecting people and animals when the shared bedrock of intersected oppressions can be fractured
Thank you.
by expanding.
So I want to explain something. We're going to take 4 people from number 1, then 4 people from number 2, so people do not get confused. Also, we are only taking 4. So even if I've known you for 20 years, I cannot call on you. So I'm just making sure you know that only 4 in this bunch will get to talk. Okay, thank you. So I recognize the delegate at the number 1 mic.
My name is Aisha Hauser. I am a member of the Church of the Larger Fellowship, and I am Director of Lifelong Learning at East Shore Unitarian Church. So wider is more shallow. We will take every opportunity to avoid talking about white supremacy. This is the action that needs to be taken. This is what needs to be studied. I actually had a physical reaction to the idea that we need to expand this, and we're not going to go deeper. When Ethelred Brown asked for support from the Unitarian Association to start a black church, he was told, no, we're going to stay multicultural, and that meant white. So if we go wider, we will stay white, and we will focus on animal rights and not what's happening to black and brown people. If there were words that kept white people comfortable, that freed black and brown people, they would have been used already. We need to study white supremacy. Thank you.
I'm now calling the delegate at the number 2 mic.
My name is Laura Kim Joyner, and I serve as a community minister at the Community UU Congregation of White Plains, New York. My ministry is as a wildlife veterinarian working with marginalized communities in Latin America. Just checking what the moderator's doing. I'm going to keep going. One indigenous leader, Tomas from Honduras, was shot 4 times because he tried to protect his people and his parrots that fly over his diminished forest. I asked Tomas, why are you willing to risk your life for birds and for wildlife? He told me, Doctora, everything is at risk, and I am willing to risk everything. If the parrots don't make it, neither do my people. My work with Tomas and others in this region is intersectional work. For we also know that if people don't make it, neither do the animals and the earth. All people must flourish, for none are free until all are free. Last September, Hurricane Maria decimated the infrastructure and forests of Puerto Rico, taking the lives of the people and many other beings on that island. These populations were made vulnerable by centuries of domination which takes the form of colonialism, white supremacy, and patriarchate, and the consequent economic exploitation, climate change, and environmental injustice. This domination is killing bodies and cultures. I long for co-liberation from this core oppression that harms us all and benefits all of us. As oppressor and oppressed, I ache for the healing for the people and beings ravaged by domination in all its forms. I invite you to intersectional dialogue and work, whether it's through this CSI process or not.
So much is at risk. Let us risk with one another.
Thank you. I recognize the delegate at the number 1 mic.
Ashley Horan, Executive Director of the Minnesota Unitarian Universalist Social Justice Alliance and delegate from First Universalist Church of Minneapolis. As we debate these proposals, let's remember the origins of the term intersectionality, a term coined by a Black woman, Dr. Kimberly Williams Crenshaw, and it denotes the various ways in which race and gender interact to shape Black women's experiences. Dr. Crenshaw recently said, "Some people look to intersectionality as a grand theory of everything, but that is not my intention. Intersectionality can get used as a blanket term to mean, it's complicated. Sometimes, it's complicated is an excuse not to do anything." In the context of this discussion, I fear that CSAI 2 is the equivalent of it's complicated and will lead us to water down our commitment to the work of unwaveringly confronting white supremacy. It is not that the environment and animal rights are not important, or even that they're not related to white supremacy, because they certainly are. But CSAI 2 is so broad that it will set us up to privilege our individual passion causes over a shared commitment to confronting the beast of white supremacy.
Delegate from the 1 mic.
Just as it
Delegate
matters,
from the 1 mic. You have to only speak in favor of your motion.
I support CSAI 1 because just as it's important that we specifically say Black Lives Matter, because the world has and does so often say otherwise, it is imperative that we focus specifically on white supremacy. I support CSAI 1 because I believe Unitarian Universalists are being called by our ancestors and our descendants to do something we don't always do well, which is focus. I believe that doing so will in fact serve as the gateway through which we begin to understand and address all other forms of oppression.
So I need to remind people, there are multiple accessibility needs in the House. So if you scream and shout, it means that people who have a hard time hearing can't hear. So if you could silently do whatever it is you want to do, that would be really appreciated, even if it's not my own general cultural form. So I recognize the delegate at the number 2 mic.
My name is Camelia Ellen Tobley, and I am a delegate from the Unitarian Universalist Church of Cheyenne. This CSAI intends to address broadly all systems of superiority, which are intertwined and mutually supportive. A few of these include white supremacy, imperialism, religious hegemony, economic and education inequalities, and environmental dominion. They must be addressed in a holistic manner to be successful. If we do not change our economic system and address our educational system, white supremacy will continue to be taught and reinforced in future generations. I am attracted to this CSAI because it offers multiple entry points so that anyone may enter its work, regardless of where they are beginning, and offers the opportunity to see the interrelated nature of all these different oppressions. As one example, my father is Egyptian. When I learned his first language, Arabic, as an adult, I quickly became aware of how superiority is reinforced through language conventions, such as always preferring male pronouns, using different language to address older males but not necessarily females, and the use of animals as insults. And yet, I know that most of my Arab friends cannot see that this beautiful and ancient language implies and reinforces harmful systems. The work of dismantling entrenched systems of superiority and oppression is long and hard. It is time to create a movement of movements that draws all of this important together for the liberation of all. Thank you.
I now recognize the delegate at the 1 mic.
I'm Chris Jimerson, Minister for Program Development at First Unitarian Universalist Church of Austin and a member of the Allies for Racial Equity Steering Committee. And it's on behalf of the Allies for Racial Equity that I speak today to express our strong support for CSAI number 1, Undoing White Supremacy. Given the events we have experienced within our Unitarian Universalist movement related to our culture of white supremacy over the past weeks, months, and years, given the new beginning we have recently made with our white supremacy teach-ins, we believe we are called here and now to not only continue but to expand our focus on undoing white supremacy. Given that daily we witness images and stories of black and brown bodies being decimated, in fact, and indeed far too often destroyed, people of color's families being ripped apart, we believe we are called here and now to dismantle our culture of white supremacy. I believe that doing this work together, dismantling our culture of white supremacy within ourselves, among us, and beyond us out in our world will put us on a path away from rampant individualism within which so many different forms of oppression can not only survive but thrive, and toward collective liberation for us all. So on behalf of Allies for Racial Equity, I urge my fellow delegates to vote for CSAI number 1, Undoing White Supremacy.
I recognize the delegate at the 2 mic.
My name is Larry Kelland. I'm a member of the congregation of South County, Rhode Island, and I believe we have another issue that is not possible to ignore, and I am very happy that that President Susan Gray brought up the climate change problem. It's happening fast. It's going faster all the time. And I have to say that several things are involved here. The climate itself, the loss of habitat and the loss of wildlife. I don't know what a world without any wildlife would look like, but it wouldn't be happy. And the other matter that's going on right now, which is very serious, is the 6th extinction. So mass extinction of species is happening right now. And I think that the Unitarian Church has to acknowledge this. And I know that it is not explicit in our 7 principles, but I wanted to have, in some way, a greater status for us because, to be honest, no matter how many schemes people come up with, there is no planet B, and the Earth is apparently a very rare planet to be able to support life. And let's not blow it. Thank you very much.
I recognize the delegate from the 1 mic.
I am Carol Carter Walker, a delegate from Paint Branch Unitarian Universalist Church in Adelphi, Maryland. I've been a UU for 30 years, active at the church, district, regional, and national levels. Like many of you, I am a person of words. I live almost exclusively in my head. But today, I am doing something uncomfortable. I am speaking from the heart. I am sad, and I am hurt, and I'm asking for your help in taking away my pain. In my 30 years as a UU, I've seen many manifestations of how skillfully we UUs can dodge the issue that is at the core of our faith and threatens its vitality, white supremacy. We said that if we changed our music and worship styles, then black people would come. We said that we were not as attractive to people who were black and brown because they were mostly Christian, not acknowledging the theological diversity of people of color. We focused on climate change, classism, income equality, gender and sexual expression issues, ills that are important but external rather than internal to our movement. Our posture is, and has been, solve these problems first, and we'll get to your concerns later. We refuse to slay the dragon of white supremacy. We dissemble, we defer, we divert, we derail. We pit the rights of animals and the concept of human exceptionalism against the need to clean up our own house. So now's the time to look the dragon squarely in the face, name it, call it out fearlessly and boldly, and work to slay it. Now is the time.
Thank you. I recognize the delegate from the 2 mic.
I'm Bill Rude from the First UU Church of Rochester, Minnesota. I have a concern about terminology. Okay. I have a concern about terminology. I'm well aware that Western culture is steeped in racism. I have a 7-year-old Afro-American granddaughter who was told by a Euro-American classmate that they should not play together because they're different. So racism is a huge problem for me, but so are all other forms of oppression, which are mostly not rooted in white supremacy, but in greed for money and power. While white supremacism is growing, it is not the only oppression, and the terminology misses many intersections. Nor does the terminology acknowledge that people like Clarence Thomas are sometimes the instruments of white power elites. The terminology certainly has no attraction for poor whites, nor for those of us upset with the mayhem wrought by militarism. Identity issues do not fundamentally threaten the power structure. So they are encouraged by elite media and used to divide the population and distract us from issues that do. I support CSAI too. Thank you.
Thank you.
As your co-moderators and your Board of Trustees have shared with you, we're hoping to help model during this General Assembly how we can be in relationship and deeper conversation with one another, even as we are advancing the work we do together forward. It's in that spirit we're going to invite us to take 3 minutes, and we'll replicate this as we continue through our business agenda. You'll see this happen again. We're going to invite you to take about 3 minutes to turn to people who are seated near you, so no need to get up and do anything complicated, but folks near you, and engage in some intentional, thoughtful reflection, dialogue, listening to one another around this question. How do these CSAIs that have been offered, how do they address what our congregations need to witness in these particular times? We're going to invite you to engage with one another in dialogue and reflection on that question. I'd like to invite us back together. If you could close out your conversations. Thank you for engaging in that. My colleague on the board, Greg Boyd, will now explain and lead us through the voting process on these two CSAIs.
Our voting process for congregational study action issues makes use of the bottom portion of our yellow delegate voting cards. If you're off-site, obviously you'll have another way of doing this. But at this time, you can go ahead and tear off that most bottom part. And ushers and tellers, do we have pencils for people that didn't bring pens into the hall? Can you give me a thumbs up if that's something you have? All right, I see that pens and pencils are coming from the back of the hall, so those who did not bring them along with you. At any point, you can go ahead and, at any point, can you hear me now? Yes. At any point, you can go ahead and write a little number inside of this box. But at this point, I invite you to pray with me. Spirit of our living tradition that guides us to make ethical statements on the things that matter to us most, let our hearts be moved by all that we have heard and know that we can discern well together. We know truly the deep hurts we cause to one another and this world, and we know that moving together, we are able to do more. Blessed be, and amen. Please complete your voting, and then your ushers and tellers will be able to collect them in a basket and take them to the back. We will announce the vote later in our debate and conversation. Sound good? Thank you.
As you're completing your voting, I'd like to welcome the Reverend Vale Weller, the Director of Congregational Giving, to give the annual program fund report. Thank you, Vale. And thank you to the Office of Stewardship and Development for all the work that you do.
Our UUA bylaws state, a congregation becomes a member of the UUA upon acceptance by the Board of Trustees of the association of its written application for membership, in which it subscribes to the principles of and pledges to support the association. Our principles and purposes close with this promise. As free congregations, we enter into covenant, promising to one another our mutual trust and support. The vehicle for congregational support is the annual program fund. I am the Reverend Vale Weller, and I have the privilege of serving as your congregational giving director. Thank you for your support of the annual program fund. It is your generosity that powers Unitarian Universalism. And now I'd like to introduce myself. I visit many of our congregations, and in each and every place I go, I am inspired. I am moved by the thoughtful, hard work that our congregations are doing to bring our shared UU principles to life. When I'm with you, with our congregations, with our ministers, my faith in who we are and who we are becoming as Unitarian Universalists is enriched. It is truly a privilege to witness faithfulness in our congregations and to help each congregation know its importance to the rest of the association. Friends, your generosity powers the Unitarian Universalist Association, and the UUA is here to support and amplify what you are doing. The UUA equips and supports congregations for vital and thriving ministry in all areas of congregational life. From publishing and online resources, to training and coaching, to ministerial search and settlement, the UUA provides essential foundational resources for sustaining transformative and liberating ministry. For staff and volunteer leaders, the UUA offers values-based training, professional credentialing and support services, and comprehensive leadership development experiences to prepare for faithful leadership of UU congregations and communities. Our faith calls us to take action for justice and liberation in our communities. As the national voice of Unitarian Universalism, the UUA shows up with campaigns and partnerships to bring UU values into the wider world. Online, on paper, in person, and around the world, the UUA helps people stay connected to our shared faith. My friends, it is your support which makes all of this possible. Your generosity powers the Unitarian Universalist Association. We know that generosity is an important component of the spiritual life. Similarly, your congregation's commitment to the annual program fund is a covenantal spiritual practice. It is one of the ways in which you demonstrate that we are an association of congregations by supporting not only your own, but all Unitarian Universalists. The other congregations across our association depend upon your generosity, as you depend upon theirs. We need each other in so many ways. Through your support of the annual program fund, you help to embolden congregations across our land to do the work of justice, to love more deeply, and to grow to meet the challenges of our time. Your generosity powers the Unitarian Universalist Association. On behalf of all of the congregations that your generosity benefits, thank you for your generous, steadfast, ongoing support. Thank you, Self. Wave your arms if you believe in the importance of our religious communities in this time. Wave if you know that this is no time to go it alone. Wave if you are a member of a congregation that proudly gives to support the annual program fund. Wave your hand if you are from an honor congregation, contributing the full requested amount in support of the other congregations. Please look around, keep those hands in the air. Make it a point to thank at least one of these representatives from congregations across our association who help to support your own. And please do stop by to see us in the Stewardship and Development booth at the bottom of the escalator so that we can also appreciate you in person. Your generosity powers the Unitarian Universalist Association and Unitarian Universalism. Thank you for your care, for your love for our faith, and for your support.
Please welcome the Reverend Alicia Ford, the Professional Development Director of Ministries and Faith Development for the Legacy Society Memoriam. Thank you. This is our time to honor some of the generous Unitarian Universalists who have died this year. Their gifts of time, talent, and treasure have profoundly transformed their congregations and our Unitarian Universalist community. Their dedication to love and justice will continue to enrich the lives they touched. As we remember these friends who loved our faith with all their hearts and whose hopes for the future now rest with us, may we renew our own commitments to this faith we share, a faith that connects us to generations gone and generations to come.
We celebrate the many lives, friendships, and memories that have been lifted up here today. May we honor those who died with our own commitment to answer the call of Unitarian Universalism and build the beloved community in our faith and in our world. So may it be, and amen.
Hey, Leon. There's some beautiful music, but I'm feeling like we could do some singing as we move into my favorite part of General Assembly, which is the work on our bylaws. I am not kidding.
Well,
you got a good song for us?
I have just the thing. First of all, I'd like to let everyone know I am a UUMN being. I'm a human being today because I'm so proud of my credentialed music leaders and certified music leaders who walked last night along with all you beautiful clergy. And so I just liked, one of these people that walked last night was Mr. Scott DeVoe. And so right now, would you rise, join Mr. DeVoe and me in body and spirit and sing Blue Boat Home. Don't forget to breathe. Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Here we go. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. Last verse. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Thank you. Was that about what you wanted? All right.
So thank you. So I just want to say that was my bridging song, like a lot of us. And so Jen Hazel is listening. So thank you, Jen and Eric Keston. So, y'all ready? Time for bylaws, baby. So we have 4. Ready? 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's 2:51. All right. So we're about to do the change to principles and purposes. I just want to say this before we do the motion. As this proposed bylaw change received over a 4/5 vote at last year's General Assembly, no amendments to this proposed change are allowed this year. And so it was submitted from over 15 certified congregations in 2017. Final adoption shall require a 2/3 vote at this General Assembly. I recognize the people at the procedure mic.
Hi, my name is Jamie Yandel, and I am a delegate member and affiliate minister of First Unitarian Church of Toledo, from Toledo, Ohio, where I serve the community as a hospice chaplain, and I'm responsible for this change update. Removing women and men and updating that language to prophetic people allows for the inclusion of all persons of all gender identities and expressions. Our polity is such that we are able to shine the spotlight on our own covenant. The strength of our living tradition means we are a part of a covenant in which revelation is always being revealed. We're at that moment right now. I want to thank my mentor, Reverend Dr. Susan Ritchie, my church, First Unitarian Church of Toledo, the 16 churches that submitted paperwork so that we could get to this point, the folks who voted last year to pass this through preliminary vote, and all that have helped. And by strengthening the voice of the marginalized among us, working together, we're able to do the larger work in the world.
So will you please make the motion?
Hang on one second. Sorry, I have a little bit of anxiety. I would like to make the motion that we change the wording from women and men to people.
Thank you. Can I have a second? All righty. The motion's on the floor.
Okay, so before we vote. Chairs are dangerous, y'all. Yeah. Before we vote, we'd like you to have an opportunity to reflect a little bit. Some of you were not at General Assembly last year, and so this may be a new concept for you. So please turn to the people sitting around you. Try to talk to somebody you don't already know, and consider these questions. In what ways does this proposed change improve the language of our second source? What concerns do you have about the proposed change? And overall, how are you feeling about this proposed amendment to our bylaws, and specifically one of the sources of our living tradition? And you have 3 minutes. 30 seconds.
All right, we are ready to come back to a discussion of our and concerns for this particular bylaw amendment. Before we move on, I'd like to announce the vote of the proposed congregational study action issues with 1,100 or 1,101 votes to 108 votes. We will be studying number 1. All right. I recognize the delegate at the pro mic.
My name is Melissa Jeter. I have been a member of First Unitarian Church of Toledo for 20 years. I am one of the commissioned lay minister candidates leading this church. This change to all persons reflects that we can indeed be a bold people. Bold people can be prophetic. Bold people are in mutual relationships with each other. Bold people radically care for each other. And bold people listen and show up for justice when someone is hurting my sibling.
Thank you. I recognize the delegate at the concern mic.
My name is Dale Haleen. I am about a 64-and-a-half-year member of the Wilmer Unitarian Universalist congregation in Minnesota. And I am for inclusive language, and I think with gratitude of the work of Drusilla Cummins, now long deceased, but who led for the effort to bring inclusive language, the word women, into our literature, our bylaws. And I wish that the language could include the prophetic words of women and men and all people whose wisdom inspires us, you know. And I don't think we're moving forward if we remove the specific language recognizing women's contributions. I feel very strongly about that. I think I understand the pain of exclusion. I don't know how many decades I heard that mankind included women. It was great relief to start to see women included, and I would like to not lose that.
Thank you. I recognize the delegate at the pro mic.
Hello, I'm David Strickler from the First Unitarian Church of Toledo, Ohio. As a Unitarian Universalist, I affirm and support the inherent worth and dignity of all people, and I think our second source needs to use that language to affirm the inherent worth and dignity of all people, regardless of race or gender or sexual identity. Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize the delegate at the concern mic.
Thank you. I'm Lorella Hess, the Conejo Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I was a delegate at the General Assembly in 1984 when we passed the Principles and Purposes. At that time, I was completely oblivious to gender non-binary issues. I have learned since then. I thank the people who have helped me learn. My concern about this change arises from something I learned at that GA in '84. When we passed the Principles and Purposes, we attempted to read them in unison. From the completely unscientific survey of the people standing around me, about 2/3 said men and women rather than women and men. And I thought, wow, a group of Unitarian Universalists cannot say women and men when they are reading it. That's a problem. I'd like to refer you to page 67 of the program guide for this General Assembly, in which on this agenda it notes that we are now voting, changing men and women to people. Somebody wrote that. I don't know how many levels of proofreading it went through to get there, but that's my concern.
Thank you for sharing your concern. I recognize the delegate at the pro mic.
My name is Brenna Kaler. I am from the Smooch congregation. This is written by my friend Icarus. When I started using they, them pronouns, I was scared to tell people it was always just he/her. I currently use he, they, and Icarus, but I'm still scared to tell them. I didn't know very many non-binary people. I even felt like I was going to be judged by those people. I was told that I was invalid by someone, so I went back to the closet. I finally came back out again, and I felt free. Now I can feel like I can tell people. So that's a pro from one of my friends.
Thank you. There is no one at the concern mic. I have no one in the off-site queue, which tells me you are ready to vote. So that you remember, we are not able to amend this. Final passage requires a 2/3 majority vote. I have a little tablet that tells me when the off-site delegates are voting. It takes them more time to see the live stream. So it will take a little bit more time for us to know what the final vote is. Make sense to everyone? Fantastic. Okay, we are ready to vote. All those in favor of changing the language of women and men to people, please indicate by raising your yellow delegate voting cards now. All those opposed? You can put your cards down. We'll wait for the off-site. Let's see the off-site vote. The motion clearly passes.
Would somebody from the Joseph Priestley District who is prepared to make the next motion come to the procedural mic, please? I recognize the delegate at the pro mic.
I'm Dennis Wellnitz, a representative of delegate from the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Rockville. I am also president of the Joseph Priestley District. The Joseph Priestley District organized 27 congregations to petition to have this proposed amendment put on the agenda for this General Assembly. Do I need to say anything more?
Does he need to read the motion?
Shall I read it?
Yeah, go for reading it.
Okay. Section 6.16, congregational linkage. This will be a new section. The Board of Trustees shall establish and maintain means by which congregations may communicate directly with the Board concerning governance of the association and receive from the Board timely responses to such communications. The means established by the Board shall be distributed to the congregations.
Do I have a second? Hearing a second, we now have a motion on the floor.
Thank you.
Just to note that there was an incorporated amendment to Amendment 2. You can find it either on the app or on one of these sheets of paper that you may have got picked up when you got in. Incorporated amendment changes, it strikes the word A in front of means to allow for the possibility of plural means. So that was the only amendment offered at the mini assembly. So now is the time when we want you to form a small group with folks around you and try to include some folks you might not already know. Take 3 minutes to discuss this amendment. What sort of linkage would you like to see from the UUA board, and how does this amendment move us toward that? 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I invite you to come back together as a community as we move into discussion. I recognize the delegate at the pro mic.
Hello, I am Dennis Wellnitz of the UU Congregation of Rockville in Rockville, Maryland, and also the president of the Joseph Priestley District Board of Directors. Policy governance requires that there be governance linkage between the constituents and the board of trustees of an organization. And that needs to be a formal linkage, formal governance linkage. What we are asking is that the board of trustees follow its own requirements of policy governance and establish preferably multiple means by which congregations can communicate directly with the board of trustees and get timely responses. This is important because getting together 15 congregations to petition the board of trustees cost us 2 years of effort and thousands of dollars and many thousands of hours of organizing time. That shouldn't be necessary. We should be seeing the UUA Board of Trustees as friendly as our districts were and as close and personable and lovable. So please be lovable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Recognize the delegate at the procedural mic.
Thank you. James Snell, First Unitarian Church of Dallas. A point of information, and I could be ignorant, but I was on the Board of Trustees for 3 years, and the question that my delegation has, is there an obstacle now for congregations communicating directly with the Board of Trustees?
So our sense is that if this bylaw passes, this would further clarify and make intentional the intention to have linkage and communication with the board. There certainly are available mechanisms now that allow both individuals and congregations to communicate with the Board of Trustees. This would deepen, codify, and maybe expand those existing mechanisms. Thank you. Recognize the speaker at the con mic.
I'm
sorry.
here from the Beacon UU congregation in Summit, New Jersey. I want to say that this is a very good idea and a very bad bylaw. This is how bylaws go wrong. It's a one-time directive. It's a good resolution to ask the board to do this, but to put this in the bylaws for something that is done once and done is simply misguided. This is not the sort of thing you put in bylaws. Bylaws are for continuing conditions, not for one-time actions.
You recognize the speaker, the delegate at the procedural mic.
Thank you. Carl Ponanen from the Unitarian Universalist Church of Greater Lansing in Lansing, Michigan. Just on a point of procedure, a point of information, I apologize, point of information. Has the board taken a position for or against this proposed amendment?
Thank you for that question. We have not taken a position for or against this amendment. We're allowing the assembled delegates to decide that. Recognize the delegate at the pro mic.
I'm Jim Turner from Salt Lake City. I had the privilege of serving as a district president for the Mountain Desert District at one time. And unfortunately, I was unable to attend in Charlotte when we made the major revisions to the size of the board and the manner in which the board was elected. I had the privilege last night of having dinner with my former board member from the Mountain Desert District, Lou Finney, and I had a lot of problem with changing the election of the board to make it at large. Downsizing I thought was a good idea. But what we don't have is the formalized connection. It seems like so much of what we've done over these last few years has moved the congregations further and further from the National Association. And I feel like this, it's not a one-time thing. It's a mandate in the bylaws that we establish some procedure whereby there is a continuing communication from congregations to board members that affords a two-way flow of information. It's not to bother the board members with some menial little ongoing, well, sometimes it doesn't seem menial, but some of the operational issues that we encounter, but rather it affords the opportunity to exchange information, to get feedback from the congregations as the board considers this or that. And as a result, I'm very much in favor of this, and I applaud the fact that it was constructed in a manner that does not dictate the mechanism and leaves to the board the opportunity to do that. At the same time, the board can't ignore the imperative that it be done.
Thank you. We recognize the delegate at the, do we have a delegate at the procedural mic?
You do now. Hi, Diane Daniels, Unitarian Universalist Church of Norwich.
The procedural mic is not on.
I'm not usually accused of being too quiet. Diane Daniels, Unitarian Universalist Church of Norwich. Question regarding this item: has there been a cost estimate for changing the linkage and/or adding linkage to make this happen?
To the best of my knowledge, there has not been a cost estimate because if the bylaw passes, the means by which it would be implemented are yet to be determined, and it would be dependent upon the means.
Thank you.
Recognize the delegate at the con mic.
Good afternoon. I'm Barbara DeLeo from Rochester, New York, First Unitarian Church. I want to speak against this amendment, this bylaw change. I'm in agreement with the previous con speaker. This is not a bylaw issue. Linkage is part of the John Carver policy governance model. It is how the board, it should be in your board policies of how the board operates. It is not a bylaw issue. Bylaws are how the organization is run. The governance model for the board is how the board is run. So this would be a place to put a policy in place that the board will respond to concerns from various congregations or however that gets worked through, but it does not belong in the bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to our off-site delegates and invite the off-site delegate at the pro mic to speak.
I'm speaking for Michelle Collins. Here we go. I'm speaking for Michelle Collins. I'm speaking for Michelle Collins, UUs of Southern Delaware, Lewes, Delaware. Hello, I am Reverend Michelle Collins from the UUs of Southern Delaware and Lewes, Delaware. Pronounced Lewis, I'm sorry. Under policy governance as implemented in the UUA, staff is not involved in governance issues. Governance responsibility is shared between the congregations and the UUA board. This responsibility depends on intentional communication and connection between them. This bylaws change supports that shared responsibility and accountability for it and ensures that congregations know how to communicate with the UUA board on governance matters. Please vote for this change.
Thank you. We go to the off-site delegate at the con mic.
This is from Joseph Barker from the UU Church of the South Hills in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The language, quote, means established by the board, end quote, seems like a hierarchical approach. Congregations need to be involved in the means approach and process.
Thank you. We go to the delegate at the pro mic.
This is Paul Pinson from the First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, Delaware, also a member of the Joseph Priestley District Board. Our congregations take seriously their role in the governance of the association, since it is an association of congregations. And when they voted to become part of the Central East region and allow us to dissolve the board, they put a restriction on that. They said we could only dissolve our board when all the duties that the board performed had been successfully handed off to other entities. The one remaining issue is governance linkage, which the district boards used to provide to the congregations and have in the past exercised. They are also acting in response to concerns they heard from another region that after the dissolution of their boards, it became more difficult to communicate with the board. We also understand that the board realizes that it had become more difficult, and for that reason, we've been encouraged to go ahead with this bylaws change. The change was also written with the involvement of the UUA legal staff so that it represents the appropriate formation. So we would like to see this bylaws change implemented so that we can be assured of proper governance linkage and go ahead with our complete absorption into the Central East region. Please vote for this. This communication is essential. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a delegate at the procedural mic? No. Recognize the delegate at the con mic.
Hi, I'm the Reverend Jennifer Nordstrom. I serve as the Senior Minister of the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee, and I agree with my previous two con mic speakers that linkage is essential, communication is essential in policy governance, but this is not a bylaws issue. It should be designed by the board, and we should continue to communicate effectively with the board. And if you're feeling concerned about your ability to communicate with the board, perhaps you should do so, but not put it in the bylaws.
Thank you. Do we have a delegate at the procedural mic?
We do. I'm Eric Valpy, University Unitarian Church in Seattle. I move to call the question.
Thank you. Okay, that's not a debatable motion. It requires a 2/3 majority. Open voting for our off-site delegates on this motion as well, and invite us to get ready to vote. So if you're in favor of this motion, did you do the second? The call to question. Okay, if you're in favor of the motion to call to question, we invite you to raise your voting cards. Thank you. You can put your cards down. If you would like to vote against the motion to call to question, please raise your cards. Thank you. And do we have any tally of votes from the off-site delegates on this motion? The motion clearly passes. With that, we're going to move immediately to a vote on this proposal. The amendment, the amendment to the bylaws, it requires a 2/3 majority affirmative vote. We're going to invite you to raise your vote, and we'll open voting for our off-site delegates, please. If you're in favor of this amendment to our bylaws, I invite you to raise your voting cards, please. Thank you. Please lower your cards. If you're against this amendment to our bylaws, please raise your cards. Could we get the tally? Thank you. Please lower your cards. Could we get the tally on the off-site votes, please? Okay, it's too close to do a visual citing on that. We're going to invite the tellers to assist us in the counting of this vote. So we're going to vote again. If you take a moment to please raise, we're going to invite you to raise your cards again if you're in favor of this amendment to our bylaws. And we're going to keep your cards raised as our tellers do the count. And we'll need a physical count of the off-site delegates, please. Please keep your cards raised high until they're counted.
Just so people understand, we have to move the other two bylaws to tomorrow because we have to do synergy tonight.
Not yet. Are the ushers still, I see the ushers may still be counting a few votes. Could I get confirmation, please, that the ushers have counted all votes? Are we still counting? Okay, it appears that the ushers have completed the pro vote count. I'm going to invite you now to please raise your cards if you're voting against this bylaw amendment, and the ushers will take that count. Please keep your cards up until our ushers have completed their vote count.
While our incredible tellers are counting your cards, I just want to make an announcement that we will do the two bylaws that we had planned on doing tonight right after the opening of tomorrow morning's session. And we do this so that we can have enough time, our youth can have enough time to reset and center in order to give us the incredible worship that we know they will be offering us as we celebrate our youth bridging. For those of you that got handouts about those two amendments, or those two pieces of business, please hold on to them for tomorrow so that we don't need to reprint any for then. Oh, sure, ask the hard questions.
Getting there.
So the opening session, the general session tomorrow begins at 9 a.m., assuming we start on time, 9:10-ish in standard UU time.
Thank you, Barb. It appears our ushers are almost done counting those opposed. I've asked for our help of our ushers in taking a vote of abstentions. If you're abstaining on this vote, please raise your cards. I'd invite our ushers to please take the count on the abstentions. And as soon as our ushers have completed this vote count, if they could bring the results forward, then we'll announce them. Ushers, do we have a vote count? Vote. Okay, we're still waiting on the count results from our ushers, but we have a delegate at the procedural mic that I recognize.
My name is Annie Scott. I'm the religious educator at Jefferson Unitarian Church in Golden, Colorado, and I'm the president of Loretta Liberal Religious Educators Association. And I just simply want to point out that it's religious educators and youth who have come at the bottom of the line that now get bumped. I understand, of course, we want the youth synergy service to be held, to have its place of honor. But I just wanted to point out, again, that we are at the bottom of the line and get bumped. Some of our religious educators cannot stay an extra night, will be leaving before they get to vote. Thank you.
So I want to say I hear all of what you said, and legally, we had to do the order. We had to put the first ones first, because you have to do those two first. The ones that are motions coming from congregations, they have to go in the order, and the other one had to go first. So I just wanted people to know we weren't trying to put them at the bottom of the heap. We have 4 more tomorrow. And so that's why they're there.
The ushers are coming forward with the vote. We'll have the results for you in just a moment.
In the interest of moving us along as they're conferring, I'm just going to do the announcements now. How about that? All right, as you prepare to leave, please look around you and collect all your belongings, and also do the ushers a big favor and pick up any trash. Doesn't have to be your own trash, can be just any trash. Take that on with you. It's really going to help the ushers out. And please take a look at Lost and Found. They're getting a lovely collection of water bottles that they would love to return to owners. That's in 2204. We're almost there, folks.
Okay, we had to do a little bit of math there, but we have the results. Including our off-site delegates, we had a total in favor of that amendment, 617 votes, opposed 462, a total of 33 abstentions. That for vote is amounts to a 57.2%. It does not meet that 2/3 required in order to pass. The proposed amendment fails. Thank you for your participation in that vote and your patience as we went through the count. I'm going to turn things now over to, we have a delegate at the procedural mic.
Thank you. Mary Jane Williams from Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Charlotte County in Florida. I was asked, a point of information, is there any mechanism in place for people that have to leave, delegates, to be able to vote off-site tomorrow?
Let me turn that over. Yes. So if you are a registered delegate, you will be able to continue participating off-site, including voting through the existing off-site mechanisms.
Thank you.
With that, I'll turn things over to our co-moderators for closing out our session.
I want to assure you that the board is committed to linkage regardless of what the vote has been, that we had a fantastic event in January with many of our congregations in the greater Knoxville, Tennessee area. You can read about that in the co-moderator report, and we continue to look for opportunities to link with all of you. That said, Greg, you have a closing reading for us, yeah?
We close as we began in prayer. Find that place of stillness and comfort that draws you into a deeper sense of connection. Know that so much work has been done, and yet so much work remains to be done, and none of it can be business as usual. We pray from that place deep within inside each of us that connects each to all and beyond throughout all space and all time, knowing that together we can do everything. Amen, and blessed be. See you at Synergy.
There being no further business to come before us, and in accordance with the schedule set forth in your program book with some changes, I declare that this general session of the General Assembly shall stand in recess until Saturday, June 23rd at 9 a.m.